Okay. Hi, guys. Welcome back to the Inside Edit. I'm so sorry for my absence. I was juggling just too many things at once, if I'm being honest. And I didn't have not only did I not have the time to film an episode last week, but I just didn't have like the emotional capacity to do it. And I just feel like it's important to share. Sometimes it's not easy to juggle everything that we're all juggling, especially as women. I think there's even more added pressure, but that's another story. So I'll give you just a little bit of a life update. And I think what I shared a little bit of this on my Instagram last week or the week before, but I was just really struggling with the loss of our home and the Palisades fire. And I was already kind of spiraling, but I think it was because I knew I actually had to go to the Palisades. I was on Spencer and Heidi's podcast with my husband, and they actually filmed their podcast in their burned down lot in the Palisades, which is kind of heavy. And I hadn't been over there in quite some time. A few months ago, the last time I was over there, I had to kind of drive down PCH and just, honestly, just seeing it, I just decided it's not great for my mental health. And so I made a conscious choice not to go over there anymore or even drive on PCH to see like the Malibu portion of the fire. And so I think knowing that I had to go and film this podcast and obviously talk about what happened again, and just being there, even before I got there, I was kind of going through it, and it was really emotional, and I was feeling just the weight of this whole year of carrying so much, like I still had to go to work the next day. Like I still had people relying on me immediately after the fire. I mean, people certainly gave me grace for a couple of weeks, but life has to move on, and I've had to sort of carry the weight of this loss and juggling, buying a new home, which is so stressful, and then having to furnish an entire home, fill our closets, make sure Zach's kids are okay, that the stuff that they lost gets replaced. It's been a lot to juggle, and I think I'm skilled at that. It's something I've done for a long time, but I think just the weight of it all has sort of caught up to me as this year is sort of winding down. And I'm trying to find some grace for myself to actually say no to some things so that I can just sort of be home, like just be okay and not be, constantly sort of chasing after things. So anyway, I went to the Palisades, and it was just, oh, I want to cry. It was so hard. It was really hard, and it was really sad, and I knew that not a lot of construction has really started, but I think seeing it with your own eyes, like how just like little has happened there. There's still huge areas that haven't even been cleared. It was really hard to see, and I'm sad for everyone, like it's not just a me sad, it's like the collective sadness of so many people whose lives have been destroyed. And then of course finding out that this fire was intentionally set by somebody and, wasn't properly put out, and 7 days later essentially became the Palisades fire, that like it could have been avoided if this was handled properly by the government and by our local, and I feel so bad for the firemen because I just don't think that they were equipped with everything that they needed. I don't blame them, but knowing that certain things weren't done that almost are always done. For instance, after a fire, I believe there's like almost always like it's essentially like a fire line. It's like a ditch that's dug around the fire, which would prevent it from growing, and that wasn't done, and it was just sort of a lot to be over there, and then to know that this person came, like I guess he used to live in the Palisades but moved to Florida or something, or they found him in Florida. I don't really understand exactly that part, but this was someone who used to live there, and obviously is unwell, and like I have compassion for people with mental health issues because clearly you'd have to have one to want to burn an entire town down. There was videos and photos found on his phone, on his ChatGPT, of towns burning and people running for their lives, which, by the way, I was one of those people running for my life. It's hard to grapple with that someone intentionally did this. But also the lack of preparedness, I guess, or just the fact that it even happened. It could have been avoided, it's just the bottom line. Just could have been avoided. So my heart goes out to everyone in the Palisades, in Altadena, in Malibu who've been affected by this. And just, healing is not linear, it's very grief. It comes up and it goes away and then it comes back again. And it's a wild ride. And I just feel so much compassion for everyone, that was affected by this. It's not like just my house burned down. And especially the families whose children were growing up there, who had businesses there. I have a friend who lost her home, her business, and all of her kids' schools, and then all of these kids are displaced and having to figure out, after COVID too, having to kind of start all over again in new towns and new areas. It's just like, it's so heavy. It's so sad. It's so fucked up. So I'm super sensitive and super empathic. And I think just seeing the magnitude of loss and again, how little has happened to rebuild and bring people home is really sad. And the government is just failing us left and right. We chose not to go back, not even because we wanted to not go back. We couldn't, we couldn't afford to go back. We couldn't afford to build a house there. Given our insurance situation, it just wasn't even in the cards for us. And yet I still feel a responsibility to advocate for the people of the Palisades, because I live there and I lost everything too. And it's just hard to wrap your head around. So that's my Palisades rant. And I just say all that to say, that's why I was sort of missing last week from the pod. I really needed a second. And I think having to continue, and this is for anyone going through anything, sometimes you're going through really heavy stuff and then you have to continue to show up for your life. You have to continue to show up for the clients who pay you, or the assistants that rely on you, or the podcast that you're filming, or the clothing line that you own, or your husband and their kid, and it's like, it's a lot sometimes. And I'm learning that I have to sometimes take a step away to fill my own cup, I guess. And obviously that's advice I've given in the past to many people. I say it all the time, put your mask on before you help someone else. But sort of the heaviness and the weight of juggling so many things at once and still having to hey guys, just show up everything's fine is hard. And that's sort of been where I've been at this year. And I think I'm sort of just at the end of my rope of availability to keep putting on a happy face. Does that make sense? Okay, that's my rant. Yeah. I will say that obviously there's some people who are advocating so hard for the Palisades. I think Rick Caruso I voted for him. I'm so bummed that he wasn't our mayor when this happened in the first place, but I'm just so grateful for people like him. He started this nonprofit called Steadfast LA, and they're going to the government and they're trying to assist. He says a lot this can't be entirely on the government to fix such a huge problem. And so he's taken it upon himself in this nonprofit that he started to, help the people of the Palisades. They're rebuilding the park in the middle, and they're trying to figure out what to do with the rec center. And he was deeply affected by this. He lost his daughter's home, and I think their home in Malibu was also lost. And I just think there are people obviously doing so much. It's overall still sad that we're even in the place to have to shout out the people who are doing anything. I also know that there's a tax in LA. This is something that I've known about for a long time because my husband is in real estate. It's called the ULA tax. If you sell your house over $5 million, you pay a 5% fee essentially to the state. And if your house is over $10 million, you spend 10%, and it goes to the state. And it was supposed to go to homeless housing or something along those lines. They call it a mansion tax, which basically anyone in the Palisades should be exempt from, given what's happened. If they're forced to sell, why should they have to pay this tax? And so I do know that Rick advocated for that and got the mayor to eliminate that for the people of Palisades and Altadena. So we're grateful for that. I know that will help a lot of people. and sort of recoup, what they've lost. So Spencer and my husband have been friends for like 25 years, and I met him and Heidi after we started dating, of course, but then when we moved to the Palisades, we got to see them all the time and spend time with them. And what I loved so much about Spencer even then was like he was like the fucking class clown of the Palisades. Like he was always, in town and filming funny things. And I remember one night running into them. There's this tiny little Mexican restaurant in the Palisades Village next to Blue Ribbon. It's just this tiny little, and he was playing Heidi's album with a producer that they were working with and just blasting this album. And they're like, come in here, and we're dancing around this teeny little restaurant. It's just, what was so special about this town was it really was a community of people who really knew each other, and the owner of the restaurant is letting them, sort of have this dance party in the middle of their restaurant. And so, when they lost their home, I remember we called him that day, and their home was much further away from the fire, where the fire started. And we called him and we're like, you okay over there? And he's like, I think we're going to be fine. It's like way over there. And then just like that, they lost their home, and his parents lost their home. And I think the sister's home as well. And they were underinsured and do not think they're able to rebuild. And so Spencer's obviously taken on this stance on social media to advocate not only for himself, but for everybody and sort of the failings of what has happened. So I'm grateful to him, because if not him, who? No one else is really standing up in the way that he is. And so we were on the pod and we sort of shared our story about what happened that day, but also just the beauty of the town and what was, and also just how Zach and I met, and, just sort of caught up, because obviously we have different audiences who might not know us. So it was great. It was also so sad. And they have this whole podcast crew in the middle of a dirt lot. So can't wait for you guys to see it. And obviously we're going to try to get him on this podcast as well. So on a more positive note, I just got home from Mexico City with H&M. I'm an ambassador for H&M, and they are one of my all-time favorite partnerships. They are the most wonderful company to work with, and they give us these like incredible experiences. We went to London with them last month for their fashion show, and then this month we went to experience this designer collaboration that they did with a local Mexican designer, Lorena, and beautiful party, beautiful dinner, but also just got to show us this incredible city, and came up with this incredible itinerary and brought us to all these really cool stores and perfume stores and ceramics, and just really, I feel like, got to see the city in a really beautiful, amazing way. So I'm so grateful for that. I was able to bring Zach. It was just a quick 3-day trip, but so fun to get to do things like that. I've said to him so many times before we have kids, we have to travel as much as we possibly can. So I manifested this at the beginning of the year, just more travel, the two of us. We haven't been together that long, like 4 years. And there's so much that I want to experience with him. So to get to do that with a brand, that's obviously paid for, is such a gift and something I do not take for granted at all. I'm excited about the other things they have coming up, which I can't share yet, but so much fun things happening at H&M. I also love, like, just plugging them. I love their studio collection. I tell them all the time that they need to make more of it, because every time I wear it, you guys ask about it, and it's always gone. It's sold out. It's a little bit of a higher price point, and I think it's just a bit higher quality than their normal, like, main line, and a bit more fashion forward. And they're the pieces that I gravitate towards the most. So keep an eye out for that. I just love them. I also got to meet two people that have been with the company, like one for 30 years, one for almost 40 years, like two women that, the CEO started in the store. Like, how crazy is that? This woman started as a sales associate. The head of design, same thing. She's been with the company for 38 years. I just think that speaks volumes to a company, and those are the kinds of places I like to align myself with. And I feel super grateful to be a part of the H&M family. So while I was in Mexico City, my assistant Rachel went to Orlando for a shoot with something at Disney, which I was excited for her because she's never been to Disney World and they were able to go and do that. I've never been either, by the way, like still to this day. Never been to Disney World or Disneyland. That's weird, right? It's time. But at this point, do I wait till I have a child? Like, I don't even know. I don't know. Anyway, I just say all that to say that we are always juggling so many different things. We had a client who had a premiere here in LA last night, so I had my local LA assistant handle that, and then we had Hallie go to the Victoria's Secret fashion show this week, so I had someone in New York doing a fitting with her. We prep all the clothes, and then we ship it to New York so that she doesn't have to travel. One of us, we use a local assistant. And so they sort of unpack it, and then I do that fitting on FaceTime. And then the stuff gets shipped back. It just arrived as we're sitting here. And Rachel, Coco, and her assistant are on a flight right now to land and come straight here to do a fitting for her upcoming tour. She's going on tour with Brandy and Monica. She's opening for them, which is, by the way, so nostalgic for me. Like, my all-time favorite. The Boy Is Mine, like I can't even get over it. So grateful to be doing that, plus a couple Halloween costumes for clients. Everyone always asks me about Halloween. They're like, do you love Halloween? Like, what are you going to be? You guys, every single year for the last probably 15 years, I am so focused on my clients' costumes that when it comes to myself, it is the last thing on the planet I want to do. And I usually just, now that I'm married and my husband has nieces and nephews, we go like trick-or-treating with them in sweatpants. But the idea of me getting a Halloween costume for myself is just, it's just basically out of the question. Like, I do not have the capacity to, and I also feel pressure. I can't just go to the frickin' Halloween store and buy anything. You know, I feel pressure to do something really cool, and I just don't have it in me. So I focus on my clients' costumes, and that's great. We also have Eva Longoria, who just did some stuff in London. She's going to a bunch of things here in LA. We have Vogue World coming up. We have the Academy Gala, LACMA Gala. So those are all bigger red carpet events that I'm focused on for her. So I feel like you guys are always asking me, how do you juggle it all? And honestly, it's just a matter of having a great team and being able to delegate so that all of this can get done simultaneously. It is a lot. And it, like I was saying in the beginning of this, I think the weight of everything that's going on personally for me does make it harder for me to have a clear head and do all of this, but I also don't know another way. So I just continue to do it. Yeah, so I think a lot of people don't realize how many people it takes to sort of keep the ship going. And like I said, we have local assistants kind of everywhere. Sometimes it's a gamble. Sometimes they're people that I haven't met, but they come recommended from another stylist. I do have someone in New York that I love and I trust, and we go back to her all the time. And, you know, my clients are more comfortable when they see the same person over and over again. So we try, of course, to stick with people that I like longevity, obviously. Rachel's been with me for 7 years. So I like when people stay. I've been with my agency for 10, 15, like a long time, a long time. I'm a big loyalty person. So, you know, we'll have multiple things going on. Like I said, Rachel's on a flight right now. Our other assistant is out prepping for a fitting we have on Sunday. We have a fitting here today. And tomorrow we have, what's tomorrow? I have something in the morning. Oh, yeah. Tomorrow I have a shoot in the morning, and then I have Eva going to the Academy Gala in the afternoon. I still have to get jewelry for her today because I've been out of town. So that has to happen today. The dress has been tailored twice, so I feel good about that. That's at least off my plate. But yeah, this job is definitely so much multitasking. And then you add on filming a podcast or having a brand deal and having to go to Mexico City and having to do the content for that brand. Well, shout out to Lindsay who does the content for me because I can't do it all. You know, I have an amazing girl who does my social media and does the editing for me when I can't. Sometimes I do it, but mostly for my brand deals, I'll have her do it because it's just honestly too much. And I'm a big believer in delegating. I know some people, for instance, don't have the social media manager, whereas it's just not something that first of all, it's like it's not even my generation. It's just like I don't always have the capacity to do it. So And then simultaneously my team is working on, getting guests for the podcast, or my agents are negotiating other brand deals or pitching me for different things. You guys saw me pitch Race a clothing line for Revolve the other day. We're working on that, so there's always something happening. And yeah, it's a lot. It's a little crazy, actually. All right, you guys, I have so many exciting guests coming your way, and I cannot wait to share who they are. A few of which I would not exist as a stylist without them. So a little clue, a little hint, two women in particular that I literally would not be sitting here if it wasn't for them. So I'm so excited to have these guests coming on the pod. And next episode, I'm going to answer some of your questions. I put up a Q&A on my Instagram. I always want to give you guys exactly what you want. So I'm going to answer some of your most asked questions. And yeah, that's it. I love you. Thanks for holding space for me. Love you so much. Bye.